John T, how you doing, my friend?
Steve, all is good and nice to see you. Bear with me. You'll see that I am on my UPS. We are in power outs here. So bear with the colors of the screen. We're doing our best, but
Beautiful.
all is
Well,
good. You're all going well your side. You're looking well.
thanks, John T. Yeah, all good. I just thought let's get together for a bit of a chat, a bit of fun. I'd like to do a little presentation on site etiquette. Now, we have presentations on how to glue down a floor, how to click lock a floor, how the expansion gaps work, the moistures of the floor, but we never really get around to the on-site etiquette. And this is something that happens on site every single day on all the jobs that we go to. So I thought, just for a bit of fun, I put a little presentation together. Let's go through it, and we can discuss each one as we go through it. So what do you think? Let's have a look and start the presentation.
Well, yeah, I think start the presentation, but it's one of those subjects which so few of us address, and yet we experience it on every single site without exception. So I look forward to see what you've got here. Let's let it roll.
Right. So I've labeled this how to conduct yourself in a customer's home. Cool. Okay, so let's go to the first page and see where we're at. Stand by. So on this page, I just said, insurance is such a vital thing. You can break something in someone's house. It's just by accident. Even if it's by accident, it doesn't cost a fortune. And there's all the profits of that job gone into repairing what was broken by accident. So it's good to have insurance on everything in case there is an accident. So just to give you a little example, many years ago, I was working on a job in Rosebank, and this customer had some beautiful curtains, swags and tails. It was unreal. And one of my guys, who are probably going to be watching this because he's on this group, was using a rotary sander. And next minute, the curtain caught in the rotation of the sander, and the whole curtain, that was the end of the curtain. So that cost me a lot of money. And another one, my driver, Phineas, was reversing up one of my customers' driveways with my big 1974 Chevy, that long wheelbase truck I used to have, and misguided his reverse and knocked the whole gate down. And that was $7,000. So, yeah,
Okay.
it's important. You've had any experience in this?
I have, and at the time it wasn't funny. Now it's very funny. But and this is going back 10, 15 years, just when the power outages started to happen in South Africa. And we were working on a site where we were on the second level. And there were no balustrades on the different levels at this point in time. And our site conditions being what they are, we all carried on regardless. And there was a power outage. And my beautiful bonus sander, obviously turned itself off, which was fantastic. And we all sat down and we waited for the power to come back on, because at that stage of the game, most of us didn't have generators and everything that's become sort of necessary to do site work now. But the power came on again, and for whatever reason, the boner machine hadn't turned itself off. Yeah. So the short of the story is the sander took off. It went over the landing, or left the landing, and it fell one floor. And the first instance was, God, who's been hurt? Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the sanding machine was absolutely destroyed. It never ever worked the same, and it didn't matter who I sent to repair. The shaft had been bent, and whatever they did, never got it back to its starting point.
Yeah.
There would be a classic case of where I didn't have insurance, but if I hurt someone, I would have needed it desperately and urgently.
Yeah.
And as far as the machine went, I mean, I ran it for many years after this, but the reality is it was never ever the same machine.
100%. So insurance,
things happen.
Insurance, and just while you talk about sanding machines, you got to be careful, of course, that if you're oiling your floors, you don't leave your rags on site, get in water, because these things can ignite, as well as the sawdust in the bag of your machine can ignite. So that's just of it. So yeah, let's move on.
Have you experienced that, Steve? That oil in the fire?
I personally haven't experienced it, but I've heard a lot about it.
I've personally experienced that. You and I are a bad team. We've been around a long time. But I actually have arrived on a site where my guys were working, again in the early days, to see smoke coming out of a room. Literally grey smoke billowing out of a room. Went on site, no one had a clue. And my guys had been piling all their rags in a room that no one was using and were completely unaware that they caught fire.
Dangerous.
No damage, fortunately, but a fantastic experience to have early on in the days,
Well,
so that we all understood that
I
we weren't joking.
remember, it maybe it was in your area. I don't want to mention names, but there was a fire, and I think there were people killed in the situation. So anyway,
We had
John,
a house go
it's
down.
unreal, man.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to the next one. Let's see where we are. Furniture, furniture. The trend often can be, I don't say it's a trend, but say, well, we're coming to do your floors. If you can have all the furniture removed, TV disconnected before we arrive. And that's, of course, the best scenario if you can get that right. But people tend to want, you move the furniture as part of the job, whether you charge for it, or some people may do it for no charge to get the job over their competitors. But it's always a risk. If you're moving furniture, dismantling wires out of TVs, that you can have a scratched wall, damage something. So be careful of that.
Yeah, Steve, very much so. And I've no doubt you and I can both recount horror stories there. I've had a TV broken on site. I've had to repaint walls where the guys, when they were sealing the floors, lost interest and just did whatever. You've got to be very careful.
Yeah.
Towards the end of my installation days, I used to insist on the owners getting people to do this.
Yeah.
I lost the capacity to manage that type of stuff.
Right. So, guys, furniture, it's important to do it properly or to palm the responsibility onto the owners. Or if you are going to move it, maybe take no responsibility and say, we're not taking responsibility, but we'll do you a favor. And maybe you've got to put that in writing or something like that, because it can be a danger.
Very much so.
Right, so let's see where we got next. So just the thing is, of course, before you're starting your job, make sure all the prep work is done, your floors are flat, leveled, flatness, screeds done, the wet work's done, the glass is installed, the moistures are to spec and all that. That's important even before you get to the site. So it's not part of on-site etiquette, but it's got to be ready before your on-site etiquette starts. So it's very important. So let's move on to your team. To be presentable is a big thing when it comes to, if you can't have your team rocking up to somebody's house, filthy, dirty, and smelly and all the rest of it. So it's got to be presentable. The guys are got to be clean. So when they walk in, they haven't got 3 days of sweat on them. And the overalls really should be replaced every 2 or 3 months or more, even if just to keep it clean. And it's good to have your company names on your overalls and T-shirts. What do you think, John T?
No, again, very much so. This all goes down to the basics of being professional.
100%.
Sometimes we forget in the sort of day running of our businesses that when we move on to a site, the second we arrive, we're judged.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is pivotal in terms of creating the right impression from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, very important point.
100%. Here we go. Safety equipment, besides the fact that, you're saving your eyes and your feet and your ears and all the rest of it, just having these equipment on site already shows your customer that you are professional installer, where your guys are all well protected with dust masks and all the rest of it, goggles, safety boots, earmuffs. So, no, a lot of sites. I remember many years ago, there was a guy doing a wooden deck with a chainsaw. And if he would have slipped, the chainsaw would have, the way he was cutting it, would have probably hit his leg and cut his leg off. And the guy who was on charge there said, but this is very dangerous. And the reply was, this is Africa. So it's not really a reply, this is Africa. We've got to be professional wherever we are in the world.
Steve, I think when I look at this slide, the thing that comes to mind, and it's something which I'm sure most of us are guilty of, it's not that we don't necessarily have this equipment on site. It's that we tend to not enforce it.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience where, and again, I'll speak for myself, where you've got everything in the bucket, the helmets, the masks, the goggles, but you go on site and no one's using it.
Yeah.
And that's, that's where management comes in. You've just got to enforce these things.
Well, it all stems from the top. If these guys aren't using it on
Yeah,
the site, it's not them.
yeah,
It should be insisted on by management. 100% correct, John T.
yeah.
Let's see where we at here. Tools, to keep tools clean. Now, who's got the time? You know what I mean? You finish your job at 5 o'clock, you come to job the next morning, you got to find time or have a schedule of where you are cleaning tools. Maybe it's a day off. It's today's tool cleaning day, once a month or once every 2 weeks, or it may be an hour in the day, whatever it is. You got to find a set schedule about cleaning your tools, because that also is your reputation, and your customer also will say, "What kind of company is this? Look at these tools."
And again, it's not necessarily only the look of the tools; it's the way the tools are handled. And so often we forget that we are being watched. And there are people out there who've employed us who know how they should be used.
100%.
Okay, so they pick it up instantly, and you get judged for it. So again, very important.
Well, that comes back to training, and I think these guys out there, like Festool, and the guys do power tool training, and maybe through the association, we need to do more of training so guys know how to work with a table saw without cutting their fingers off and cut off saws, all that. So training, definitely, it's safety on site, very important, John T. How to use the tools. Good point there. Toilets. Woo.
Oh, hello.
I know that's well, first of all, it's you got to kind of, before you get to the job or before you get to site, you've got to know which toilet you guys are entitled to use. And this is a worldwide problem. And are you going to have a portable toilet in the garden on site for your guys so you don't use the owner's toilets? And this happens here also where I am in America. So don't people start thinking, oh, it's a racial thing, it's all over the world.
No.
Workers using toilets. So, and I know some of the toilets at some of the places where the guys live aren't the best, and it'd be so nice to sit down on a clean toilet in someone's house. But you got to try and avoid that, using the toilet for the number twos, for the poops. If you can, because just now you've had 3 liters of Coke for dinner, and next minute the whole house is got a pong to it, So you got to keep the toilets clean, guys, and someone should be in charge when you finish weeing. I'm going to be straight to the point. You got, of course, we splash. You need to, when you finish weeing, give the toilet rim a wipe with the toilet paper and then flush it. Before you leave the site, make sure your customer's toilet is clean, the one that they allowed you to use. So this should be discussed prior to your arrival, so there's no issues. Sorry, sir, where do I use the toilet? This should be discussed and explained really. What do you think?
No, very much so. And again, this gets back to training. It's something which everyone in your team or your teams needs to discuss openly and be prepared for what's going to happen on site, so that you avoid issues like this, because they're very real.
Yeah, 100%. And this could cause you a lot of problems of payment, of embarrassment, reputation, all this type of thing,
Yeah.
Right. So that's the toilet story, John T.
Okay.
Kaftan. Yeah, we all like to have a good kaftan, papanyama, and all the rest of it. But guys, when you sit and you got, like, for example, these natural tiles here, they absorb the fat and you can't get rid of it. So you go and do a job for the guy's house, multi-million house. The guy spent $100,000 on his beautiful natural tiles, and next minute they've got this situation from the scuffton. So you guys got to, if they're going to eat, you got to put down plastic, find the place where they can eat, keep clean. After lunch, wash the grease off your hands. Don't just start touching walls and all this. Have a special rubbish bin in order to keep your stuff away and clean from messing up your customer's home. Have any experience with this on your job sites?
No, you're actually sending me into post-traumatic stress. Okay, I've got a lot of experience with this. And again, it was just the training, teaching people what happens when you do this. You look at that picture of the tile there with the grease in it. We'll clean that. It's not easy. No. Okay, and there were so many instances where damage like this took place. I can remember timber flooring, solid timber flooring, where you'd walk in and the floors have been sanded, and you put the varnish on, and then all these oil stains just start appearing, and you know what it was. You sit there and you look at it as if you don't know, but you know it's where everyone was eating lunch.
100%.
So, this brings back memories, this one.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's something to really take note of. And, and when you're having lunch, you've got to be orderly. You're in somebody's home here. And I remember getting a call, Stephen, your guy's sleeping in my fireplace. It's just, you got to set the rules and teach and educate the guys on the job etiquette or on-site etiquette.
Funny, yeah.
Oh, this is a big one. Monday morning. Shit, and either you got a big alcohol breath, or maybe you got a shortage of staff on a Monday morning. But if they come to work, your staff come to work with the alcohol breath, sometimes you might just have to send them home and not pay them for the day. But then your job is affecting your whole business. So you got to find a way to have a Monday morning where the guys on Sunday don't drink the hell out of it and arrive to work bubbleless on a Monday with all the alcohol breath. You had instances of the sort?
I'll tell you what happened this morning is I won't mention the name of the company, but I had to go and visit the company this morning. And when I walked in, it's a huge company, it's a national company. And when I walked in, the security at the door made me breathe into a breathalyzer. And, my first thing was, hey, I'm coming to work, I'm a client. Okay. And the guy said to me, company policy, you come into this building. Okay, when we're told to check for alcohol, we don't worry who walks in this building. You can be here for any reason, blow. And I had to blow into the machine this morning. Oh. So some companies have realized that implementing this is critical, and they obviously are not separating out who gets tested and who doesn't. When you walk in at this particular point of time, if they're having a test, boom, everyone's tested.
No. Well, the only reason they're doing it is from past experiences, which has been negative to them.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, that's it, guys. Monday morning, don't come to work reeking of alcohol. Yeah. And don't be late. You got to tell your customer what time you're going to be on site. If you're going to be if you say it's going to be 8 o'clock, make it 8 o'clock. If you're going to be late, make a phone call. And I know what it's like. I ran 6 teams myself. To get all your teams together, all the trucks in a row, all your tools on there, unless they're going to be going straight to sites, whatever you're doing, even if you say to your customer, we'll be there at 9:30. It sounds late, but at least you're on time, and it'd rather be early, instead of telling the guy, we'll be there at 8 and you rock up at 9:30. So don't be late. This is all things that people tell the neighbors about. No, these guys, they could never came to the job on time, You might have had a similar kind of thing in your times.
I don't think any of us who've been in any sort of business haven't not experienced it. It is a problem, and again, it's the difference between starting a job where there's a good vibe and starting a job where there's a bad vibe. Yeah. And if you want to start a job with a bad vibe, tell the client you're going to be there at 8 and arrive at 11. Yeah. Before you've even had the conversation, they don't like you. So again, absolutely basic but critical.
Bad start.
Yeah.
Well, I had a situation here. Again, my guys on this group, but I've no names mentioned, but we live and learn. So I got a call from a customer one day that, Stephen, your staff are fraternizing with my domestic worker, asking her for a phone number and all this. So you got to, you come into work. You're not coming to look for girlfriends or anything like that. Yeah, not a great move. So no fraternizing or flirting or trying to get the phone numbers of the customer, the customer's daughter, domestic worker, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Again, it's all stuff we learn as we go. But the cleaner you can be on site in terms of arriving, doing your job, and leaving, the better for everyone.
100%.
It just prevents so many conversations and ensures you get paid, because these things all come up when it comes to payment.
Yeah, 100%. So that's a good point. That. Oh, every time I see the video, I think, oh my God.
I'm gonna go for a whiskey after this chat. I thought I was way past seeing all this stuff.
it's a bit early. It's only 11 a.m. in the morning, but it's 8 o'clock at night in South Africa. So
yeah, trust me, it's not late enough. You're bringing back some really interesting memories for me.
Oh, guys, have your trash bags, your dustbin bags on site. And if you're leaving the site at 5 o'clock, 4:30, stop work and clean up. Make sure you leave that house spotless, your site spotless, clean. It makes a huge difference to your reputation, to your customers. So just leave a mess in the room. So we're still busy. It's really not work. It just leaves a bad impression.
That was good there.
The truck, the bucky. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to rock up to the side of the stuffed up old skadonk that's falling apart and filthy dirty. Your tools are dirty. You got to have some kind of, and on the road, it's nice sign writing. This is an advert for your company. This actually has an American picture. Now, this one here, a scald was on there, but this is a South African company. Flooring. So keep it clean, keep presentable. It's just all image. It's an image is important when you're working in people's fancy houses where you're fixing their home.
Yeah, and they're paying good money for it.
And they're paying
good money. Floors come cheaply.
100%. Oh, I was guilty of this myself at one stage, to be quite frank with you, but that taught me the lesson. If you smoke, obviously you can't do it in the house, and you got to go outside to a place that's clean. You got to have a little portable ashtray or something. You can't just stomp your stompy out in the guy's garden or in his flower beds or his flower pot. You got to have a place. It's very important. Besides the fire hazard, it's just you flick the stompy and then it lands. Yeah. Okay. So I think it says it all.
Yeah, it does say it all. And again, such a small thing, but can cause huge problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, you got to, it's all education. Some people are just used to flicking their stompies. You got to say, you can flick your stompy, but not in the house we work in. Anymore? Yeah. Okay. So this one, it's just introducing your team leader, at least your team leader or staff or the group when they arrive, to introduce them to your customer. You can't just rock up at a guy and say, "Hi, sir, I'm helping you do the job." So some sort of introductions that the guys or the domestic worker is expecting somebody who sort of knows who it is. Even if you tell them, look, it's going to be a guy, this is his photograph, but this is his name. His name will be Phineas, and he's going to arrive at 8 o'clock, just so you know who's coming. And it's important, just don't rock. Anyone can be, the security situation, the way it is, people have got to know who's coming to their house. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to mention, Steve. So certainly in this part of the world, from a security point of view, it's very, very important to introduce your team leader, and make sure that everyone in the house knows who they are. Otherwise, it makes it very easy for people to come and go at will, and that obviously is not an ideal situation.
Yeah, 100%, Jonty. I think we're getting to the end of it, but another one on the site is, when your guys arrive on site, and then all of a sudden, without being told, even the room which is doing, the direction of the floor, where do you start the job, from which focal point, where do the T-strips go, where the end caps go, this all has got to be discussed with the team or the team leader before he even gets to the job, or the day of the morning. Then you got to be there and discuss it. You can't just leave it, and then at least where you're 3 hours away and it's the day's in, and if you have a phone call, you know exactly what he's talking about on the site. You've explained it to him, you've been through it. So it's very important to run your team through the job prior to them just doing it, because just now the floor's running in the wrong direction, or they're in the wrong room, or I've even heard of a case in the wrong house. So
not impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
With the cradles, the biggest problem I have with the cradles is exactly what you're talking about now, is where the guys don't have these pre-site meetings. They get given plans, which they quote all, and they arrive on site to discover that what they've quoted is just not suitable for the job. They haven't visited the site before. Yeah. The architect who's given the plans has not checked. and the contractor has just assumed that it's been checked. And then I get the call say, oh, we need more. The area is bigger. Oh, the heights are wrong. We need an extra 20 mil. Okay, and why? Because no one is actually taking responsibility for checking out what's required and quoting on it before they get there.
Yeah.
No, I can't mention names now, but I mean I've had one of our big companies say, what's my policy? And they've discovered that they're short of materials because the heights they were given aren't what they're working with. Surprise, surprise. Okay. Am I willing to provide extra materials at no cost? Well, you can't run a business, by saying, well, just pay me if you need stuff, and I'll just have it delivered to you. It doesn't work that way.
There's your profit gone, and today the cost, you need to at least make a profit to cover yourself.
Yeah.
Right, are we at the end? Let's see. Okay, that's another good point. Hey, we spoke earlier on about power tool, how to operate the equipment, the machine. It's important that people know table saw is probably one of the most dangerous tools on site. But I've had a guy cut his finger off on a table saw on site. Me too. And that's also one of the, and when that happened, I went out and bought proper good equipment. Now, we seem to sometimes buy the cheapest tool that can be bought. And when we could rather spend another $1,000 for good equipment that's more stable on its feet or legs, whatever it may be, but you need to have some aid on site, and probably good to even have some of your team educated on some first aid safety.
Yeah, sure. So if you can get that right, it makes so much sense. My experience in this particular subject is having a finger off when we were working on a game farm. And we were miles away from anyone or anywhere. I mean, I think it took us about an hour and a half to get to the closest little town to find a doctor. Now not having an emergency kit in that situation causes huge problems, massive problems.
100%.
So again,
very important.
Yeah. Ish.
Anyway, so this is a little present. I just felt I wanted to do something on the job site etiquette, if you want to call it that, or the site etiquette. A little bit something different because as I said, we've been trained, and we do train on all sorts of things, but not on this. So hopefully this will be a benefit to some guys watching, or pick up a few little points in the head and say, shit, no, we got to take more care of this, So yeah, John T,
Steve,
that's the story. I thought we'd get together on that.
No, fantastic. Well, when you invited me, and you mentioned that you didn't think that this would be a subject that interests everyone in the group. I think our joint response to that was even if you don't find it interesting, at worst case, it's educational. Yeah, okay, and everything that you have spoken about tonight, if you're not doing on site, it's just a matter of time before the problem arises. It will happen. It's just when. So again, thank you. I think there's a lot of value in these sort of chats, and we know that we can do with as much education as we can possibly get. So hopefully, some folks will watch this. Yeah, I love these little chats. Well, Steve, on that note, let me sign off.
Thanks, John T, and we'll chat again.
Fantastic, but thanks so much.
Have a good one.
From my side, good night. I'll chat
John,
whenever.
You take it easy.